Hey, so I'm Matthew, the creative strategist at Square Culture, and this time during the pandemic has been a really interesting time for us at Square Culture and developing our work to fit with the restrictions and requirements that this situation has caused. So one of the key points that I wanted to talk about today was the change in our methodologies to suit this new digital era that we're kind of moving in towards, and how we've adapted to fit into the time.
Everyone at Square Culture is working from home. How have you found adapting towards using digital methods to do our human-centered research?
So it's been quite interesting because, of course, you get something very different from tackling sort of human-centered research in a digital way, because you lose the direct connection, and it becomes a lot more difficult to sort of understand and read the person in their physical being. However, the perspective that you get from digital methods kind of is also quite intimate, because in a way, when you're interviewing participants or when you're talking with people, they're in their home space. So they tend to be in their living rooms or in their study or their makeshift office that they've created. And all of this is part of sort of the qualitative data that we then collect, because part of that is also the images and how people move about in their personal spaces. You get quite a lot of information from the small screen that you get seeing somebody on the computer, because you can see how do they make their home, what sort of environment do they create, what can that mean for them, and how they sort of imagine the world around them and want to curate the world around them. So you get lots of information from that, but it also means that it becomes a lot more easier to access participants, because you're not confined to the limitations of organizing a time to meet up in the real world. You're not trying to find a neutral place. You're not trying to then find a place that is easily accessible to host the interview, and you're not limited by physical restrictions. So therefore, you can access people all around the world, and you can access a much more diverse range of participants to your research project, which actually provides a much richer knowledge for us when dealing with kind of creating these profiles for who are potential product users or who are potential consumers of a particular product.
Yeah, so before the pandemic, like we as researchers, we would travel a lot in our daily work. Like if you had an interview in Stockholm, you would go to Stockholm to meet with that person.
Exactly, but then what's interesting is that the tactics that we're now using during this pandemic aren't exactly different to what we were using beforehand, because, you know, sometimes we weren't able to perhaps make it up to Stockholm and stuff. So we did then use like a digital platform to access these interviews. However, because it's becoming such an embedded part of our practice now, our perspective on it has changed completely, and we're seeing it for the much more richer method than we might have done previously. I think for all of us, it's made us think outside of our own comfort zones, and you know, this is something that is a great opportunity for us to expand our experience and expand our skill set.
And since the pandemic, people are doing more things from their homes, and that means doing more things digital. Would you say that there is a whole new digital world expanding now, since we do more things online as opposed to before the pandemic?
Definitely. And I mean, you know, for example, Zoom, that's become like just a daily word that I think many of us around the world have started using. But beforehand, you know, we would probably talk about Skype or Google Hangouts or something like that. But now we're moving into Zoom, and we're creating the language which helps to create the digital world. You know, we talk about online rooms that we can go into, and we can have a fika, or we can have the board meeting that is required for that day. Or we create little online spaces that can be cohabited digitally, which is a very interesting way of adapting, and we can then trace how we can verbally create that adaptation, which then helps to physicalize it, even though there's no physical realm that we're actually inhabiting. So I think this presents a really interesting sort of keyhole into people's lives and people's way of making and homemaking and placemaking in ways that have been discussed, have been thought about previously, but haven't been so relevant to everybody's like everyday life, which then presents us with lots of really fascinating ways of joining these spaces, of also cohabiting these spaces as researchers, sharing spaces, and how we can think about different sort of technology platforms to create research spaces and share research and do research in a collaborative way whilst not being physically together.
Thank you for watching this video of Conversations with the Cuppa. If you like this content and want to see more of it, make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video. If you want to know more about square culture, you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. Make sure to check out the information box down below. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.